The smartest scientists, artists, and individuals from all fields have built a separate world for themselves, and the real world is about to come to an end if help doesn't arrive. A man named Frank Walker is telling a story of how he got to this point in the present. As a young boy, Frank arrives at the New York World's Fair in 1964 to show off his invention, which is a jetpack. A man named David greets him and asks him how his jetpack makes the world a better place. Frank says that if any young boy saw someone flying over in a jetpack, it would inspire him, and that would make the world a better place. A young girl named Athena arrives and shows interest in Frank and his jetpack. David asks Frank if the jetpack works, and Frank admits that it works, but it doesn't exactly make him fly, and David dismisses him. Frank is sitting outside disappointed when Athena arrives and gives him a special pin. She tells him to follow her, but discreetly. Frank follows Athena, who is walking with David and his convoy. He follows them into a boat ride where a special robot scans the pin Athena gave him and takes him on a different route from the actual ride. Frank enters a kind of booth which transports him to a different dimension. Frank exits the booth and sees Athena flying off in a vehicle. He tries to follow her, but the platform ends. Barriers come up and Frank falls on a second platform where he encounters a robot that fixes his jetpack. Security arrives and Frank falls again. As he is falling, he glimpses a beautiful advanced city named Tomorrowland. Just as he is about to hit the surface, he puts on his jetpack and flies off. As he is flying around the beautiful city, he spots Athena and ungracefully lands down in front of her and David. David seems to disapprove of Frank. In the present day, Frank is interrupted by a woman named Casey, who says she should tell the story because she is more of an optimist. Casey begins her story from her childhood, where she is showing her parents that she has memorized all the stars in the sky. Little Casey says she wants to go to the stars. Fast forward to a grown-up Casey who arrives at a NASA launch site that is scheduled to be demolished. Casey uses a remote helicopter to take out the cameras and then sabotages the cranes which will demolish the site. She arrives back home and talks to her brother Nate and tells him that NASA is demolishing the site because they have given up, but she hasn't, and she never will. Meanwhile, Athena prepares a pin and codes it for Casey's DNA. The next day, Casey speaks with her father, Eddie, who informs her that he knows that she is the one that sabotaged NASA's crane. Eddie is a former NASA engineer, and after the site is demolished, he will be out of a job, which is why Casey keeps delaying the demolition. Casey goes to school, where every teacher is spreading news of doom and despair, ranging from climate change to society's moral collapse. Casey has the same question for all of them, and that is how can they fix it? At night, Casey arrives at the demolition site again, but this time she is caught and arrested. At the police station, Casey makes bail and collects her stuff, but among her stuff is the pin, which Casey does not recognize. She grabs the pin, and as soon as she touches it, she is transported right outside Tomorrowland. She gets scared and drops it. She grabs it again and this time walks a little, but she is interrupted by the wall of the police station. It seems her body is existing in both places at once. Finally, Casey has the idea of grabbing the pin with something else so that she is not transported. Eddie arrives to take her home, and during the ride, Casey tries to tell him about the pin, but when he touches it, nothing happens. Eddie thinks that Casey has lost her mind and takes the pin from her. Later at night, Casey steals the pin from Eddie's drawer and goes out to an open field where she has plenty of room to move around. Now she touches the pin and finds herself right in the middle of Tomorrowland. She sees all kinds of crazy inventions, like children flying around with jetpacks and advanced rail systems. She sees that one young girl is going to a different galaxy for a trip with her friends. Right as Casey is about to get on the ship with them, the pin runs out of power, and she finds herself in the middle of a pond. Casey comes home and scours the internet looking for information about the pin. She finds a store in Texas that is looking to buy the exact same pin and decides to go there. After she leaves, Athena arrives looking for her, and Nate tells Athena that she went looking for more pins. Suddenly, Athena gets worried. Casey arrives at the shop where she meets Hugo and Ursula. She asks them about the pin, and they ask her where she got it. She refuses to tell, and so do they. As she is about to leave, Hugo decides to spill the beans. He tells her that at one point, the smartest, most creative people in the world decided to come together and actually take action to make the world better. They called themselves Plus Ultra. They needed a place to do this away from politics, bureaucracy, greed, and distractions of all kinds. So they created a special city, which could only be accessed with these pins. The pins were also created to let people in when the city would finally be open to the world. But that never happened. Suddenly, Hugo and Ursula become stern and demand that Casey tells them where she got the pin. She tells them it was in her stuff when she got out of prison, but that isn't good enough for them. They want to know who gave it to her. They pull out laser guns when Casey tries to escape. Casey thinks it's a joke, but they show her that the guns can cause serious damage. Casey tries to escape and they start pursuing her throughout the shop. When they have her cornered, Athena arrives and throws a bomb that freezes time. She rescues Casey and fights off Hugo and Ursula, who are revealed to be robots as Athena kills them. They self-destruct and the shop explodes. Athena and Casey are driving away when Athena reveals that she is also a robot. Casey tries to run away from her, but she catches up. She tells Casey that the place she saw when she touched the pin is real, but it's in trouble and she needs Casey's help. They start driving toward New York to meet Frank Walker because Athena says that he can take them to Tomorrowland. Casey asks Athena why she picked her of all people, and Athena replies that Casey is special. Robot agents arrive on the scene of the exploded shop to investigate, and they kill the regular cops that see too much. Athena drops Casey at Frank's house and leaves without explanation. Casey enters Frank's house, which is full of booby traps such as holographic dogs and front doors that emit a strong pulse. Frank comes out and tells Casey that she has been lied to and manipulated by Athena, and the Tomorrowland she saw through the pin does not exist anymore. He refuses to take her there. Casey waits outside his house regardless. She sets one of his machines on fire to lure him out and gets inside, saying that she won't leave until Frank agrees to take her to Tomorrowland. She goes through Frank's stuff and finds a video of a young Frank trying to make Athena laugh and fail. She finds a room that has a timer counting down and screens playing videos of destruction and demise. A text on the screen reads, 100% probability. Frank manages to enter the house and catch Casey. He tells Casey that he got thrown out of Tomorrowland for building something that they didn't like, a machine that could predict the future with 100% certainty. Casey argues against it, claiming that they make their own destiny. As she does, the probability on the screen goes down. Frank is suddenly curious. Robot agents arrive to take Casey away, and Frank fights them off using his house full of high-tech booby traps and gizmos. They manage to escape in a pod made out of his bathtub. Athena arrives to pick up Frank and Casey, and the three drive off. As they sit in the car, there is a clear tension between Athena and Frank. Frank blames Athena for derailing his life, twice now. Athena says they need to take Casey to Tomorrowland, and Frank reminds her that she is no longer an official recruiter of the city. It is revealed that Frank is upset because as a kid, he liked Athena, and she didn't tell him she was a robot. Frank agrees to take them to Tomorrowland. They get into a teleportation device to travel. Frank asks Athena why she has chosen Casey, and Athena says it's because Casey doesn't give up. Frank asks Athena if Casey can fix it, without mentioning what it is, and Athena says they'll find out. They transport to the top of the Eiffel Tower and enter a room where there are statues of Edison, Tesla, Jules Verne, and Eiffel, who were the original 4 members of the Plus Ultra. Frank reveals that the Eiffel Tower was actually built as a giant antenna to find interdimensional frequencies. He says that underneath the tower is a ship built for emergencies that can take them to Tomorrowland. He activates the mechanism to reveal the ship, and the Eiffel Tower begins to split while the ship starts to come out. Robot agents arrive to catch them, but they are too late as the trio gets on the ship, and the ship takes off. The ship goes out into space and travels back towards the Earth, except it takes them to a different dimension, which is where Tomorrowland is. Tomorrowland does not look at all as previously advertised. Upon arrival, Frank gives Athena a bomb for emergencies. The trio is greeted by David, who is the governor of Tomorrowland. He asks Frank why he's violated his exile and come back, and Frank says he thinks Casey can fix it, again not mentioning what it is. He says that he catches the signals of the future predicting machine on his home computer, and the percentage on his computer dropped when Casey was defiant, but David does not believe him. Frank says he can prove it. Casey is lost as to what is going on. They all get on a platform that takes them to the machine that predicts the future. David explains that the machine does this using tachyons, particles that travel faster than the speed of light. They see flashes of the future while on the platform as well. They enter the machine and Casey scours through the future of Earth. She finds out that the entire world is going to end in a nuclear explosion of some kind in just 58 days. This is what was displayed on Frank's home computer. Casey demands that David help the people of Earth, but he refuses and says this is inevitable. Casey refuses to accept that, and as she says this, the vision of the future momentarily flickers into a good one. Frank points it out to David that Casey's will can somehow change the future, but David uses a device to knock Frank out. Frank wakes up in a prison with Athena and Casey. In prison, Casey figures out that if Frank can catch the signals of the future prediction machine across dimensions, then the signals must be really strong. This means that the machine isn't just predicting the future, it's also feeding that idea of the future to the people of Earth, making it more likely to occur. They explain this to David and tell him to shut the machine off, but he doesn't seem to care. Frank figures out that it's because David is doing this on purpose. David explains that he fed this vision of the future to the people of Earth to scare them so that they may not go down this path. However, people use the inspiration to create novels like George Orwell's 1984 or future apocalyptic movies and video games, which they enjoy. He says people of Earth revel in this destruction and refuse to see signs like climate change because that would mean they'd have to actually take responsibility. As David is about to have them thrown out of this dimension, Frank picks a fight with him. He uses David's watch to bring down the platform and tells Athena to take the bomb up to the machine. Athena is attacked by the guard robots, and she gives the bomb to Casey, who climbs the platform. As David and Frank fight, the platform moves up and down, and all the while the bomb is armed. Finally, the platform breaks and falls down, and Casey and Athena realize their only option is to throw the bomb across the gateway. They throw the bomb and close the doorway, while Frank and David barely make it back in time. Athena gets a flash of the future from some of the tachyons in the air and sees that David is about to shoot Frank. She jumps in front of Frank, sacrifices herself, and saves his life. As Athena is in her final moments, she and Frank share a heartfelt goodbye. She reveals to Frank that when he was a kid, she didn't tell him the truth because she didn't want to hamper his spirit. She also reveals that despite being a robot, she had urges and feelings towards Frank that she could not explain. She recalls being incredibly sad when Frank was banished from Tomorrowland. Athena's self-destruct timer starts and she tells Frank to take her into the machine to destroy it. Frank grabs a nearby jetpack and drops Athena into the machine. She explodes and the machine is destroyed. Cut to the present day. Frank and Casey are telling the story to a bunch of new recruiting robots like Athena. Frank and Casey have taken over Tomorrowland and are rebuilding it, and to do that, they need more bright people. They send out the robots to look for dreamers, because that's what Athena said her programming was. The end. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.